And this is a very, very big monster that is more powerful than our government. I hate to say it, but they are. They got stuff that I know for a fact would run circles around a B-21 Raider, an F-22, an F-35, an F-117, or a B-2. Even the most advanced weapon systems on ships, for example, or aircraft carriers can't even take this stuff down. Satellite systems can. So people have to understand that if they have this kind of resources to do this, and they're also embedded into the government, people need to understand how big this actually is. And they have to understand why this is very delicate.
Chris Lehto, welcome to Lehto Files. Welcome to Lehto Files. This is part 2 of this unbelievable, just miraculous interview with Mike Herrera. If you haven't seen part 1, I'd recommend checking that out first. Mike goes into how he got into this mess in part 1, and he gives a lot of the lead-up details. But here is part 2, where Mike goes into explicit details really on how this program allegedly works and many more details. So, man, strap in. This is going to be an amazing ride. So effectively what has happened is their team, so their special missions unit team for joint special operations was taken out by this rogue team. So a rogue team essentially stole these refugees with these containers, put them in, carried the containers by helicopter. So that would also be why you would use the containers, is that you can move people around quickly. And then they use some pretty interesting technology here. So I took notes. So it was an inside job. They have really good helmets and good comm gear, but otherwise it's all mismatched equipment. It's kind of reminded me of your story in Indonesia, basically when you were ambushed by very effective, super experienced, middle-aged men in black ops, at least equipment that you didn't recognize readily. You recognized a lot of it, I guess, but it's kind of a mismatch of equipment. But they also had advanced helmets, comm gear, and interesting, I noticed, was advanced aiming reticles and augmented laser rangefinders. I thought that was quite interesting. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'll just write down, they also said they checked the guy out. This is in the story. They checked him out with a small box with a loop antenna, kind of what you just mentioned, where they had some sort of wand that went over him, over his whole body. It was over his head as well. I thought was interesting. Then they say, he doesn't have it, so let's go with plan B. That's where they kill him, I guess. They put the refugees in a modified shipping container, and that's where the HVAC unit comes in. So you had mentioned when you saw the containers, it had this HVAC on it, and that's why you thought it was human trafficking and not weapons, I guess, if that's correct.
Those drugs is what I originally thought.
Oh, you thought it was drugs. Oh, to keep it humidified, I guess, so the drugs don't, get ruined or something. And then that's when the man came and contacted you and said, hey, actually, it's not drugs, it's people. And then that's when you went on the Sean Ryan show and seemed really angry about this.
I was, and I still am to an extent. I mean, I have further understanding on why they do what they do. And the first thing I want to tell people, and this may be a first time for a lot of people, because I've already done some interviews where I've explained this. It's still people. The element of human, right? Because coming to find out, these black team operators are not at a consciousness level that is superior enough to have access to this advanced technology, what they call AT or ET technology. So because they can't operate this stuff by themselves, means that they have to have something else to do it for them. Well, that something else to do it for them is going to be these guys who are what they call psionics or P3 assets to begin with. P3 stands for psionic predisposition potential, or they dub it P3. And this is a screening program that they use to screen certain people throughout the world at a genetic level, from what I understand, that are borderline psychic. And they have the ability to, with help of the black team, with the drugs that they administer with them to boost their consciousness even higher, that they can access this technology pretty easy. So if you think about it this way, option A is going to be a black team member. Option B is going to be a psionic asset. Option C is going to be the advanced tech or ET tech. So black team uses a device that hooks and interfaces with the P3 asset, and then that P3 asset goes and hooks up to that advanced ET technology. From that, what it basically does is they can pilot the stuff. They can. They also are engineers with this too. There's integration with scientists, and this goes all the way back to Operation Paperclip, as a matter of fact, where they pull the brightest minds from Germany, even people who are developing the cutting edge technology that, they talk about the saucer, the Glocke, as they call it, or even the saucer that they built. A lot of those scientists end up getting tapped from the black team, and that's how they started doing this R&D program. But the difference is when they started getting in contact with actual non-human intelligence in their crafts, and they started shooting them down, there was basically a mismatch. There was a missing link, if you will. Well, when they figured out that these people exist on Earth that can relatively accommodate them, then that's basically how they solved that problem. So what I actually witnessed in 2009 was not a drug smuggling operation. It was a recruitment program that they were utilizing, scooping people up from that area. And it could be other areas throughout the world, because they look for third world countries. And the reason being is because if they take somebody who's not used to the lifestyle of being a P3 asset, where you have everything provided for you, this includes their families, even if they're children, their children get educations, they get free medical, they get housing, they get food, they get clean water, they have everything that they could ever need provided for them. The way I was briefed about this, it's almost like the United States going to third world countries to look for cheaper means of manufacturing, right? Or they pulling, so if they can make more money in the United States, which means it would cost more money manufacturing, then they go to third world countries for a cheaper labor source, if you will. So they do the same thing. But they don't harm these people. They don't mistreat them. They don't hold them at gunpoint like we were, or they weren't murdered like this JSOC operator was. They keep them relatively happy, and then they basically induce them with drugs, and they also chip them so they can track them. They can keep tabs on them at any point. And what they administer drug-wise is basically serotonin and a bunch of uppers. Now, the thing with this, too, is because when they give them these drugs and they interface with this machinery, part of the problem was back then, and it still may go on today, and I don't know for a fact, but when they were hooking up to this device, they would two things would happen. Either they would go in a coma, or they would pass away. The subjects pass away from the drugs after an extended period of time, because it's very hard on the endocrine system, it's very hard on the body. And too much everybody knows in this world, too much of something is not a good thing. And with these drugs, the only reason why they do this is to basically keep them at a higher elevated consciousness to help them with their agenda, which is this technology. And, people have to understand that it's not only a small percentage of what they do involves anything with reverse engineered craft. That's a very small percentage. It's the most boringest percentage out of everything else that they've got. They've got some very sophisticated weapon systems. They've got a lot of other things that, to my knowledge, I've only heard references from, but I cannot confirm that at least with this source yet. So these people are kept at these facilities. They have a breeding program. I know only a little bit about that, but come to find out, the person that picked me up from the airport, if people track what I said earlier, was one of the byproducts of that program.
It's a breeding program, you said?
Yes. So use the analogy, and this is what he told me. He says that it takes 1,000 horses to breed the most perfect horse to run at a derby or something, the fastest horse that has the best. I don't know anything about horses per se, but, I understand that, you have to mingle and breed the best options, and then they filter down and keep doing the same thing until you end up getting the most perfected versions at some point. They've been doing this with humans. So everybody thinks that they're trying to do stuff with ET integration. I don't know anything about that. I don't personally believe it, unless I see it for myself, of course, and it could be possible. But from what I was told, that these people are bred And they're also bred to basically work in these facilities because everybody asks the question, including myself, why don't the janitors, why doesn't the facilities maintenance guys, why don't the cooks ever come forward and talk about this? Well, it's because they're in with this. And if they're having everything provided for them and they blow the lid on it, then they don't have access to anything anymore. These people don't have social security numbers. So if they're illegal aliens per se, then you can bet them that they'd probably either be escorted out to some other country, if you will. I don't know the process of that, but that's just basically hypothetically thinking. But they don't come forward because they're comfortable with what they're doing. And what he explained to me when I first met him is that if you were to liberate any of these people in these bases and installations and black sites, that you would be liberating people who don't want to be liberated. They don't want to come topside. They don't want to come out to the public. They like what they're doing. They feel good about it. They're taken care of. Everything else to them is just kind of boring in retrospect, you know? Some of these people, I guess, do come out to the outside world, but I have no idea the specifics of that. That's only speculation. But this particular gentleman who picked me up was a byproduct of that. And I don't know if they used him as a sense to try to screen me per se, or try to gauge who I was, or whatever the, you know, because it's not like they're just going to sit here and, you know, act like everything's good. I mean, there's a reason why they had this guy pick me up. This guy was very smart. This guy was very, very, very intelligent, very, very good guy. Very, like, he was different. It's the only way I can describe it is he was different. And I knew there was something about him that was different, but I didn't know it was going to be this, because halfway through that meeting, before we got into the helicopter, he goes, "Did you notice anything about the driver that picked you up or the bodyguard?" I'm like, "No." And he says, "Well, he was a byproduct of one of those operations, or at least programs." And he didn't give me specifics of it, but it was mind blowing. So they have you go through these things, and then they tell you after the fact of what it was, or what it's for, what the intention of it was, or what it might be. So it kind of threw me for a curveball, because now it says, okay, there's a lot more at play here, and I'm supposed to find out more this month. I can't elaborate into that, but the stuff that you already know about, we've talked on the back end, that I'm supposed to go witness and see for myself. But yeah, I mean, these it makes sense if you think about it, because not every single human on Earth has the ability to manage this, you know. And the other thing that people don't think about is the after the fact questions of, let's say the government does succeed with getting this technology sequestered through the legal means of them passing this bill that Schumer's trying to do, which will put everything under eminent domain. Well, if they get these crafts and this advanced technology and all that kind of stuff, do you really think that there's people in the government who are qualified to know about it or operate it at that? You know as well as I do, some of the government people, they might not be the smartest, but it would kind of have to say, what would happen with that? How are they going to designate that? Because then you're going to have some of the secrecy aspects of it, which could be, they could turn into weapon systems, which they don't want somebody in a different country having access to if they have the most cutting edge technology, and we're able to take a craft that's super fast, deploy a weapon system, and then take off somewhere, like blow up the White House. They're not going to want to risk that. So I agree that there's things that still need to be kept secret, but the power sources, the medical technology, I mean, everything that could help us as a species would be incredibly cool to have, and it would refine our planet. So I think part of the reason why I couldn't sleep was because I didn't understand how deep this actually goes. And it goes way deeper than even what I know now. And I'm only getting this information in segments when they can give it to me, because they want me to absorb it, they want me to release it, and they want to explain it in detail. Then, okay, after that's good, here's this other part. So I'm supposed to find out more this month.
And also he's talked with the Senate Armed Service Committee. You mentioned that, and he's also talked with has he talked to Arrow? Maybe. Anyway, he's talked with the government, as far as you know.
I have no idea if he's talked to Arrow.
Yeah,
I haven't listened that directly. There's a lot of things that I won't ask him, and it's not like I don't want to know, but it's just like, this guy's already helping me out so much. I don't want to bother him, because trust me, I could sit here all day and text him all these questions.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff that he can't tell me, and he has to be careful when he's explaining certain things to me as well. Of because he doesn't want to go bucket mouth, is what he said. You know, he has to refrain himself from wanting to spill the beans because then, you know, it's risky. It's very risky. Even for myself, when I started going through this and when I was able to talk about it to the government and publicly, you know, there's members of these black teams that have access to helicopters and they can do whatever they want with them. And they've been over at my dad's house where they've flown so low over the house where they rattle the walls and, you know, they scare the crap out of you. It's happened to me. They followed my car one time. I was actually on the phone with my dad. They flew right over his house and he had actually went out to look at it, and it was abnormally low because, you know, the flight restrictions of military aircraft or even helicopters go over residential areas. You can't fly with, you know, there's a certain height that you have to be, and these guys were flying a lot lower than that. 10 minutes later, that same helicopter is literally flying low, going over my car, and it's almost like them saying, hey, we can find out where you're at any point. We can touch you. We can do whatever we want. Now, the cool thing is that these guys have relayed to me how I can track this stuff. And that's what I began doing. So every time I have an instance with this, if I can find information on an aircraft, I will. And a lot of the time, if something seems abnormal, there's registration from the FAA, of course, because you can look on flight radar, for example, and see the aircraft in that area, and you can play that loop of the certain time frame and go forward and see where they came from and, you know, where they're leaving. But these helicopters that I do see, which are Black Hawks, and the only one time I ever saw was a CH-47, which is the Army's version, or CH-47. So that was the only dual rotor one that I saw, but most of the time it's a UH-60 Black Hawk, and, you know, they don't squawk. There's nothing that's signifying that, you know, they're military or nothing. And I try to give the government, at least the Pentagon officials, because some of these guys are also having the same thing happen to them too. Quite a few people, as a matter of fact, in the Senate Intelligence Committee are having a helicopter problem too. So my contacts in this organization know who's doing it. And that's why they're going to get to a point here soon where they may involve themselves with that and put a stop to it. But they told me how to log this stuff. They told me how to record it. They told me how to identify it. And if there's nothing coming up, then it's a ghost ship. So that's where I take photos or video of it, and then I relay that information, even to some guys in Homeland Security who are pilots that David Grush basically got them to get in contact with me because of the human trafficking aspect of it, because that's what these guys pertain to as their specialty. But when I explained to them what I explained to everybody here, it kind of blew their mind. But these guys have seen some pretty weird stuff too on the UFO UAP side, so they're very open-minded people. And when they saw the documentation and they saw some things that I redacted through text messages that I sent them and showed them, they understood that this was actually a real thing. So I relay information to them. If I see a helicopter or something out of the norm, I'll let them know. They'll look into it for me because they have access to all the systems with the FAA. And if something doesn't come up, then that's when they can proceed on it. And so far, I haven't heard anything, but it's good to have resources like that just to keep everybody safe and just know what I'm getting into. And I'm thankful it's been minor, but who's to know? There could be something else down the road that happens. But, you know, that's why I just have to basically keep my head on a swivel. That's the only way I can do it.
Yeah, so basically, just to kind of summarize how I understand it is, it sounds like it's like X-Men, right? There's a very small percentage of the human population that actually has some ability, some psychic ability, which is required to actually use this advanced technology, which came from extraterrestrial sources, or at least non-human technology. Is that the basic understanding? So basically, non-human technology. So advanced technology, which uses telepathy, is what it sounds like, which you hear from all the stories, right? I've heard many. It seems like stories of a wand. You know, there'll be like a wand there, and then the alien explains, this anecdotal explains that using telepathy, the wand amplifies the actual their abilities or something. I've heard that before. So this is in line with that, where this technology, however advanced it is, can actually be used by humans, but they have to be special humans that have a certain special talent. And this was interesting to me because I researched a few weeks ago. I did a video on the CIA and their remote viewing program, And there was a study from the early 2000s or late 90s that found 1% of the human population, according to the study, 1% of humans have a basic psychic ability, meaning they could teach you to do some sort of remote viewing, 1 out of 100 people. And that's in our CIA, it's in a study, official public knowledge. So this would kind of support that. Whereas maybe you have instead of 1 in 100 people are basically okay, or they have some psychic ability. Maybe you have like 1 in 1,000,000 that are off the charts and can effectively use this technology and use the extraterrestrial technology. The problem is those people aren't evil enough, is what it sounds like. So you need, not evil enough, but you need someone that you called on the black operators to interface with the actual P3 assets. You called it, using some sort of technology where they can control them. So through them, they can control alien technology. And from what I understand is at one of these black sites, maybe this one in particular, the goal is to use these P3 assets to lure down other craft and then to shoot them down, right? And you said this happens 2 to 3 times a year. So this is how, it sounds like they do have a global retrieval program, but if you can just, shoot down craft, lure craft into your backyard, right into your garage, and then shoot them down, that seems like by far the best way to actually get alien technology. I mean, it just sounds so crazy, but like you said, when you look at it and you link the dots, if you just all the anecdotal stories about the telepathic, how do they fly the ships? How do they drive the ships? So you just think about it, right? All the spaceships, there's no like controls that we see. It just matches all of the, it seems to match all the points. They're very far apart. The points are very far apart. There's a lot of interpolation right now, and I think just the story it's so out there that it's difficult to accept it. It took me I read this 3 weeks ago is when I first read this actual the actual book. So, and I put it here. It was 3 weeks ago, and it took a while to really internalize it and kind of accept it. So I don't think people are going to accept this. Even if it's 100% true, I think it'll take a long time for people just to accept this. If this is the first time that you're hearing this, I think it could set off some of your alarm bells, But that's the general idea. Is that how the program works from what I just explained?
Yes, you nailed it on the head with that. I mean, granted, there's more things involved with that I don't know, because I don't see this personally. But I do have a chance to see something like this unfold here soon. And, the technology aspect, so I understand where people are coming from. I get it. If I was not in my shoes and I was hearing this, I would probably dismiss it. But, what I've learned through this whole journey is that anything's possible. And we only know what we're told. We only know what we experience on a daily basis. So if you're going to work for 12 hours a day, for example, you go home and you turn on the television, watch a football game, and then, among other things to watch, and then you go to bed. I mean, you're not really putting yourself in a position to go and look at the stars, for example, or even research things. I'm glad there's more people these days that are open-minded. But the problem that we still face is that everybody has to understand you only know what you're told. And everybody thinks that, there's going to be a politician to come on TV and say, hey, guys, we're not alone. There's disclosure right there. Disclosure's already happened. There's been people who've even seen way, way, way more stuff than I've ever seen that work directly in fashion with extraterrestrials that I've talked to. And that there's all their information's public, of course, but these are people that, are in Dr. Greer's organization. And they have some pretty interesting documents they've submitted to the government. I've talked on behalf of that. Even people that came to Grush and told him everything when Grush was investigating this under the Pentagon, that's kind of what opened his eyes. And one of the questions that I asked these insiders, I said, what was the first thought that went to your mind when you saw this unfold personally? And what he explained to me was it confirmed that there was an afterlife to an extent, that there's more to what they know, but it shows that there's a lot of spiritual stuff involved, which reassured him. So maybe when I get to see a lot of this stuff more in person, he can probably elaborate on that, or maybe I even interpret that with what I will see coming up soon. And the reason why they're doing this for me is because they don't want me to take their word for it anymore. They want me to experience a lot of this stuff firsthand so I can make up my own mind about it and I can tell my own account about it. More like a verifiable source, like they're using me as a verification source, but at the same time, I'm using them as a verification source too. So it's going hand in hand. Like, you know, so there's supposed to be some other people involved that are supposed to go witness this too. So we'll see how that goes. But I guess it's just a rabbit hole that it just keeps getting longer and longer and deeper. And I don't know where it will stop. And I don't know if it will ever stop in the near future, because I think if things go the way that they're planned with this technology being sequestered, and who knows, you know, it's just a massive onion that's being peeled back daily.
Thanks for being here. Please like and share the video. It's free to do that. Get this information out. And it's not free to bring this content to you guys. I work hard, so if you want to support the channel, go to links in the description. Thanks again. Now to the interview, part 2 with Mike Herrera.
And I get that there's other stuff in the world that is more critical to what's going on, especially in the Middle East. You know, you always have war and all that kind of stuff, but you know, there's a lot of variables that will either prevent the knowledge coming out very quick, or there's things that may expedite that to come out fully. Because I know working with some senators and congressmen and some, you know, people in the government, they want all this stuff to come out too, and they're frustrated they're being told no. They keep getting told no, and that's insane to them. You understand a lot. I mean, people already know their egos are like this big, you know, being in powerful positions in government. So if they're being told no, then that's kind of ruining their day. And then when they're finding out that things exist that are in the realm that they don't know about, that's underneath their nose, or in their congressional districts that are happening, that they think that they have a grip on and they don't, I mean, it really shatters their ego. So I think that a lot of them, because that is happening, I think that's why they want to get to the bottom of it. But at the same time, a lot of them are understanding how dangerous this is. And that's more of a deterrent in himself. So if people understand that there's a lot of moving parts here, just like I have to learn. I mean, trust me, I wish I could just sit here and just blab everything I know and who is involved and what all this aspect is, because we connect the dots and just make everything easier. But understand there's people at will here that they're evil. And they don't want this to come out, and they make so much money on it, and they have the most cutting edge technology. They're not going to hand it over very nicely. And they've murdered people to keep it secret. And they will continue to do so until something has to give. You know, so I appreciate people's patience with this kind of stuff, who at least understand that. And there's people I've dealt with who just want it to come out now, and that's it. But it's like, until we have the understanding of how this is going to be utilized, there's nothing we can really do. It's just being at a standstill until we understand how this actually works and how we're able to operate it and get this into the hands of the public and get them to understand that, yes, our world as we know it is not what we think it is.
It's crazy. You mentioned the technology here that they highlight in these 2 chapters, the EMP, right? So that basically the helicopters kidnap the refugees, right? So the bad guys, you know, they kill the JSOC operator, they take the refugees in these helicopters, and so they launch F-18s after the helicopters, right? The F-18s aren't armed, but they can still do a low pass. And so what the bad guys use to defend themselves is an EMP, right? Electromagnetic pulse. You kind of mentioned there about these scalar weapons, and it can just knock down any digital devices. So any machines, electronics, everything, it can just drop. So if you can imagine it, you know, how can you fight against that? If they have that, it's asymmetric warfare essentially. So it's the EMP. Yeah. We already mentioned the wand. I remember and the holographic technology. So the helicopters, they're flying into into their base, right? It looks like a mountain, and they just fly right into the mountain, right? So it's holographic technology, the EMP, and then to actually maneuver the containers around, they use this wand, a special wand with a full-length arm, like a falconeer kind of arm protection there with the wand. So these are just some of the technologies that that they wrote about in the book, which sounds like, if true, then that's how they're trying to relay how they use this technology and what it is. So
Correct.
pretty
And
effective.
I know where this black site is in Chihuahua Desert. I know exactly where it is. And it's still active. To this day, it's still active. They're still doing this stuff present day. They do have some stuff in that base that people would say is a UFO. And they use a lot of that technology to move stuff around because it sounds unbelievable. And I know this personally. If you're to witness this firsthand, people are going to dismiss it. I mean, important people. Let's say you're out in your neck of the woods and you're hiking out somewhere and you come across a craft that, is in the middle of nowhere, and you see this paramilitary organization doing stuff to it, and you call the police or you call the FBI or the military or try to get people involved with it. Are they going to take you serious? No.
Well, you saw it firsthand. I mean, you saw it.
Exactly. And that's what I try to ask people that question, to put reference of, trying to get them to be in their shoes and get them, or at least put them in my shoes and understand that. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's very spooky because it's stuff that you would never expect to ever see or have happen, but that's just reality. And it's a very harsh reality because of the things involved with that. And the thing that I think is most unsettling that I think about even to this day is that guy Alex in that story who was murdered. That could have been any one of us. That could have been all of us. That was the most unsettling thing is, and if I ever meet these guys who were part of this operation that we witnessed, that is the first thing that I'm going to ask them is, why did you let us live? And I understand that, you hit this in your video that you did with the Black Ops stuff, right? Majority of these guys are former military, but they have a screening process with these guys that if they want to advance their career, it's the only nice way I'm going to put it, or they have another screening process that they do. And this particular process is more about personality. They want people who are sociopathic and they want people who are psychopathic to do the illegal stuff that have no problem murdering people, including their own people for that matter, because that's what also happens. These, anybody who is compromised, they murder. They don't take chances with it because of the obvious reason. That's why this whole thing is so delicate, because these people helping me could face that. Their whole entire families could face that too, myself included. So to an extent, I do live in the world of careful what you wish for. And the reality is that it's very real and anything could happen. And these guys, there's nothing holding them accountable. So what's going to stop them? The only thing that's going to really stop them is this to be dealt with on a government level with intervention with that.
It sounds like we have to have the people on the inside coming out.
And that's what's going on, because like these other people that I've been coordinating with, all of them are finding out that it's illegal, and all of them are finding out that they've been lied to since day one about this, and they've been misused for a long time. And that's what's unsettling for them, but the issue that I was told directly by them was that if they had a way to have income, because these guys get paid quite a bit, they make really good money doing this, obviously. If they were to have a sustainable income that was to not necessarily match, but enough to take care of what they have, then they would be able to do that, get at least witness protection, if you will, something to that measure. And then they would be happy to play ball and maybe even come out to an extent. But because of what people are seeing with David Grush, all these other people, including myself, being, not necessarily discredited, but just mocked and just, ridiculed. And none of these guys want to face that. They don't want to face that. They don't want to face the public. None of them want to be this public sensation of of disclosure. They just want this stuff to come out. They just want the government to do something about it. And if these guys can go into a different profession or have like funds given to them to where they could leave that organization, then they'd be all for it. And that's kind of the dilemma. So until that happens, then we're going to have the issue of them having to play, cloak and dagger, so to speak, until this can get resolved. And unfortunately, I don't know how long that's going to be.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mike. If you need anyone else to go and record anything on your trip, I can be there. So
I would, you know what? I would take, if I could, and this is just wishful thinking, if I could do that, I would have an entire audience. I mean, it would be like, you saw that raid Area 51 that they went out to the perimeter and basically staged out there and that they were going to raid it. I would kind of have the same thing happen here because I want everybody to see this too. But maybe one day, and that's what I'll press to do. And hopefully these guys also, they want it to happen, but people just have to understand that this is very dangerous. And I know this, and I've been well warned about it. And I'm not immune to anything. The thing that, I'm thankful for the people I know in government that are helping me with this, with safety. But let's be honest, about safety as well as I do. When the government provides you safety, you understand that it's not necessarily there. Just because it's on a piece of paper that allows it to happen doesn't mean that your physical safety is good. That's what's ironic about it, and that's why these also people don't want to come forward publicly, because a piece of paper is not going to save their lives.
Well, we all appreciate it. I think I speak for, I think thousands of people in the audience saying thank you, Mike, for taking the risk and speaking out. And then not just that, right? You're actually seems like you're investigating on your own and really using your own time and money and effort.
I have to. There's some questions that I have personally that I need to have fulfilled one way or another, and it's my own personal understanding, and it's not pleasant by any means, because what people have to understand. I mean, if let's say if you were to witness, the only way I can describe this, if you were to witness a murder happen from a mafia of some sort or a group, and let's just say that they try to get in contact with you because they found out who you were, and they say, oh yeah, well, that guy that we murdered was a bad guy, but we want to tell you why, and all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't that make you apprehensive? Because you already saw how dangerous these guys are. You already saw what they're capable of to an extent. Some of the stuff of what they got is out of your understanding completely. So if you can understand in that situation and put yourself in that dynamic, then I think you'd have a little bit of an understanding of what it is to be in our shoes. And granted, like I said, 2 of the other Marines, and I talk to them almost on a daily basis, and I fill them in with this information too, because one, they're entitled to it, but they're freaked out. And I can send you the messages personally, as long as you don't reveal who these gentlemen are, but they're freaked out. They're not happy about it. And, and I understand. I get where they're coming from. I understand 100%. I've got a lot to lose. I got a lot to lose as an entrepreneur, as a businessman. I love business. I love doing things like that. I love being able to afford things that most people can't. And I like being able to drive nice cars. I mean, that's just my thing. I'm a gearhead. I love cars, man. So that's my most expensive hobby. But when I can put myself out of that realm for a bit and do something that I think is going to benefit more people in the long run with this information, and alongside helping these black team operators, at least the good guys, get out of this mess, if I can do that, if I've got their back, then I know they'll have my back, and they've already explained that several times, and that's why they've talked and coordinated with government officials on my behalf, because they want, these guys, they have more information than I do because they're directly involved with it. Here's just this guy over here who just witnessed something, but yet you got the guys doing these operations that come to the government's aid and say, hey, this is what he saw and this is a purpose. I mean, that never happens. So the fact that I feel lucky to have people on the back end talk to the government and take this more seriously, because now the government is taking this very seriously. I mean, I've had people notify me all the way up from the former IGIC even, who was going to represent me in certain terms with this, but then that ended up getting subsided because it's more of a criminal matter compared to what Grush is dealing with. And so I have him at my disposal, the former IGIC. I have the assistant IGIC also wanting to look into this too, because now they need to know. But now that I think they've been talked to an extent, it's provided them some understanding. Does it mean that it's right? Not necessarily. I don't like the fact that people are losing their lives to this kind of stuff, because I think if it comes out in a approach where the government has oversight of it, then I think there's some safely, they can do things safely that people aren't losing their lives for this. And I think that this has the ability to do that if there is the proper oversight. Not only that, but now you don't have to hide funding from this, because it just goes into the black budget where certain people know about it, instead of an illegal budget that's being basically siphoned out of the black budget with embezzlement. That's what they do. And these guys told me flat out that that's what they do, that they embezzle funds, and that's how they take care of their families. I get it. But this is such a mess, and it's so complex. It's mind-boggling. Even for myself, there's days where I'm just like, it's a lot. It's on top of business, on top of dealing things personal in my life with that, on top of this stuff that everybody's learning into. I mean, my life's just, it's nonstop. So I'm going to keep pressing forward until I can get my personal questions answered. And then if I can do that and help out people in the same understanding that, hey, you know, if I can blow the lid on this and get these people out, and we can all approach this together and come out of public sense, maybe that's just wishful thinking, you know, then this stuff people don't have to die for it. That's all I'm concerned with, is just people being murdered and killed for it.
Okay, well, it sounds like your efforts are having some positive traction. You know, 2024 sounds like an amazing year. We got the new law coming. Lou Elizondo, he's made some quotes, Twitter quotes. Yeah, it sounds like 2024 is going to be awesome. So thanks for all your efforts, Mike. Thanks for all you've done. And yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on, or at least hear what happens at that site. Very exciting.
Well, you know, you and I are only a phone call away, you know, so if there's anything I learn, you're damn right I'm going to relay it to you too. And, awesome. You know, because I mean, you're a big proponent with this. You know, there's people I interviewed who feel very, very thankful that I'm talking to them, and they shouldn't. I'm a normal person. And that's how I see this. I'm just a normal person wrapped up in a very complex web of things, right? I don't talk to mainstream media because of what they do. They misconstrue everything. They use it against you. They do whatever they can to fulfill their obligations to themselves. And here's the other thing that I'm going to say this, and this is probably what is most shocking. Since this black team has came out in existence in 1947 under the National Securities Act, people have to understand that these guys are embedded everywhere. They're embedded in the government. They're embedded in media. They're embedded in show business. They're embedded as entrepreneurs in federal agencies, local law enforcement, everything that you can think of. There are members of this organization, a part of that. And this organization is not in the aspect of just this ET stuff. This is more of the quote unquote shadow government that people keep hearing about. That's what this is. And this is a very, very big monster that is more powerful than our government. I hate to say it, but they are. They got stuff that I know for a fact would run circles around a B-21 Raider, an F-22, an F-35, an F-117, or a B-2. Even the most advanced weapon systems on ships, for example, or aircraft carriers can't even take this stuff down. Satellite systems can. So people have to understand that if they have this kind of resources to do this, and they're also embedded into the government, people need to understand how big this actually is. And they have to understand why this is very delicate. Now, the beautiful part about it is it's relatively small, because most of the people that are doing the groundwork, so to say, or the grunts for the matter, right? Well, those are people being misled. So if they keep hearing, and they have been hearing, that this is illegal, what they're doing, and they're very patriotic people to begin with because they're in the military to an extent. I mean, Chris, if you had something like this going on where you were kidnapping innocent people and they were getting murdered, not directly by you, but you were the one facilitating that, and then you come to find out it's illegal, wouldn't you want to put a stop to that too?
Well, does it stop my paycheck? I mean,
That's
yeah, it's all related. I mean,
yes, it is.
and if it's since this is going back to 1947, that could play into why and how the US was able to maintain superiority. It goes back to, you don't want to know the answers. Maybe you don't
Yeah.
want to know why we have the greatest military on the planet. Maybe you don't want to ask that question.
Well, let's just say that there's been a lot of very horrible things that have happened throughout history to make that happen. But at the same token, it's kind of more of a placebo effect, because the military is not the strongest. This black organization is the strongest, but they're not in the United States. This is a global thing. They have bases all over the world. In Middle East, they have them in China, and everywhere that a lot. I don't know per se exactly. There's only been some speculation because Dr. Greer's list that he's put out, and of course the resources I have, they're only confined to certain parts of this country. But there's more at play. And if you talk about this particular black site shooting 2 to 3 ET craft down a year, and there's other black sites like this all over the world, multiply that number significantly. And the last, so a lot of these bases were built in the 80s. So from the 1980s until now that this stuff was going on, multiply 2 to 3 times X amount of years. That'll tell you how many crash retrievals they've done. They'll tell you not specifically, but just estimation wise, right? So this has been going on for a long time, and these guys have a lot of assets. And of course, it's not just ET craft that they're shooting down at these places. They shoot down other experimental craft, and they blow it up. They incinerate it. And the unfortunate thing, and this is kind of the thing that makes me a little bit pissed off, and because I know that this is going on, because I've been told about this, and because I've been told about something, I'm in knowledge of it. I have to do something about it, and that's what we're doing right now. Is that these guys, they don't put a 24/7 TFR, and TFR basically is a restricted airspace, right? They don't do it 24/7, because if you were to go to this installation, for example, that I went to, you understand that it looks like it's nothing. It's in the middle of nowhere, right? So if you were to fly out there and see that there's nothing out there, but why is there an airspace restricted? Then that starts to get people's curiosities going. They start to want to try to dive in and look at things, right? Especially if you know something, experienced pilots for that matter. There's been instances where these EMP weapon systems they've used to target these ET craft have accidentally have also hit off in a distance, because it goes at a wave, some of them, and it's hit civilian aircraft. And they go and retrieve that wreckage, and they incinerate the wreckage, and they incinerate the bodies, and they put a missing persons report out. And there's also instances, not a lot of the time, but it's still yearly, where these people fly in these restricted areas and they get shot down by these EMPs. And these are people that are flying private aircraft. There is some, flights going over this base that are, jet airliners or 747s or, Airbuses, but they don't target those, because obviously if those get hit, then what kind of ramification that'll have. That'll get everybody's attention if a jet airliner was shot down carrying, a couple hundred people, if that is the case. So when I heard about that, that was kind of very unsettling, because it shows that these guys are hell-bent on keeping their secrets. And innocent people are being killed because they're flying in where they shouldn't be, and I don't know why they are. But now that I'm in knowledge of it, and there's other people in the government who do, there's something being done about it right now, on a legal sense. Because
Excellent.
It's murder. It's flat out murder. If I was to take a Cessna out to one of these locations, just enjoying a flight, maybe you got your family with you, and all of a sudden you get hit with something and it just makes you drop out of the sky and you're dead. I mean, that's a reality that some people have faced. And then all of a sudden, nobody knows where you went because you have an organization that is covering it up, and they're disposing the wreckage, and they're disposing the corpses, and they're putting a missing persons report out. So right now, our job with this is we're trying to coordinate between the TFRs, the times that they've also illustrated where they had missing persons report or flights that have went missing in these areas. And that's how we can pinpoint when it's happened and the duration that these people have been dead for, because there's family members that need this explanation to happen. And it sucks to imagine how that would go over if they understood that there's an organization that killed their family members and kept it secret for years. That wouldn't sit too well with me. I know that wouldn't sit well with you, and I'm pretty sure everybody in the audience right now wouldn't sit well with that either. You know, and it's very real. So when I heard about that, it made me realize how diabolical these people are, even more to an extent. So that's part of the reason why I'm just keep pushing on to this. You know, I don't care about the naysayers. I don't care I don't care about their opinions. I appreciate the support, but honestly, I got bigger things to worry about, and part of it is you got to put a stop to stuff, because now that I'm in knowledge of these crimes being committed of murder, and there's other charges that are going to go with this because they're desecrating corpses, or I don't know what the technical term is, but it just sucks.
Okay, well, we appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for all your time, man.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say that we missed?
Guys, keep an open mind. Naysayers, I love you guys. I love when people tell me I can't do something or try to criticize me, because you know what that does? It just makes me just keep going faster and harder. And nobody's going to stop me from doing this.
Excellent.
Drush is in the same boat. We just laugh at it. He does, I took my social media down because of this, even I don't tell people my main business, at least, that I deal with, because I want people calling these locations up, trying to get a hold of me, can I get an interview, or, can I ask you questions about this, or try to talk shit. I mean, it is what it is, at this point, but just rest assured, whether it's good or negative, I'm just on a one-track mind, and I'm trying to get this truth blown open so all of the people of this world, everybody in this world is entitled to this information, and I believe that 100%. And I'm working for everybody to make sure that this does happen, because once this pillar falls, people have to understand that rest of them are going to be like dominoes. All it takes is one of them to fall over to hit the next one, and for that to hit the next one. And, Grush is doing things behind the scenes with some other people that I know who are also whistleblowers, not in the public sense, but we're all working together on this. So we're all of our stories, all of our experiences, all of our knowledge is now connecting these dots, and it's making this big picture. And I guess I'm just trying to find knowledge for humanity and for myself. And rest assured that I'm not going to give up.
Excellent. What'd you think of that interview? I mean, unbelievable, amazing stuff. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I think he's so credible. I've been working with him for a few months now, and I think he just seems like an honest Marine. I've actually never met a Marine I didn't like, to be honest. They all just seem like the people you wanted to come find you on your side when you're in trouble. Yeah, so that's what I thought about Marines. He seems like just an honest Marine, and I thank him for trusting me and coming out with all this information. It's either going to come out true next year, or he'll be shown as some sort of fraud or delusional person. I just don't get that feeling. But obviously, I think we need to keep an open mind on all aspects, and this is a lot to digest. Don't forget to check out part 1, and then it's free to like and subscribe. So if you do like this, please like it. If you can share this information as well, that does really help the channel. And I do this all with no sponsorships. It's only from you guys. So if you want to support the channel and get exclusive backstage content, you can go to Patreon patreon.com/Chris Lehto or become a YouTube member now. I'm putting additional content on both of these. But again, my main content is going to be free. Okay, so again, it's about transparency. It's just if you want to support the channel and help me make the content even better. Thanks again. Have a great day. Peace.